welcome to the show.
By the way, all right, thank you. Thanks. The perfect clip. Was I in that clip? Like everybody said,
Well, you do disappear into this character.
Oh,
Tom.
I don't disappear. I am laid beneath 5 hours of
Was it
makeup
5
job.
hours? I was watching the film, and there were moments where it was really just your voice and your eyes. That were...
When I met, excuse me, I got to turn off my phone.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry we didn't tell you earlier.
By the way, no phone. When I first met with Baz Luhrmann, I said, "Can I ask you a question, Baz?" Yes. What is it? Why are you talking to me about a movie about Elvis Presley? Because I don't see any play. Who am I going to play? J. Edgar Hoover?
Right. Yeah.
Ike Eisenhower? Where am I in this? And he said, "Well, no, this is about Colonel Tom Parker and Elvis." I said, all right. Could you do me a favor, please? Show me what Colonel Tom Parker looks like, because I'd never seen a photograph of him.
Yeah.
Never heard his voice. You know, I think Colonel Tom Parker, what is he? Does he make chicken on the weekend?
Yeah, of course.
He, a big cowboy hat and a stentorian voice? And then he showed me a photograph, and so again, I had another question. Why is it you're talking to me about playing this
Were you
guy?
offended when he showed you the photo?
I was not offended. I said, you see me as a man of infinite opportunity. All you'll have to do is say, Tom, just sit in this chair for 5 hours and we'll do all the rest. And that's what we did every day. And everybody says, how'd you get through 5 hours of makeup? Like this. This is how I got through 5 hours of makeup. That's it. That's all you have to do.
That's the secret.
Cut to that clip that you just saw.
So it's interesting you say that, because I obviously knew the name, Colonel Tom Parker, but I realized I had not seen a photo of him, and I had never heard what he sounded like. But do you think that's common for people, that they never...
Well, I think the Elvis aficionados.
Yeah.
We were just down in Memphis. By the way, every person in Memphis knows everything there is to know about Elvis Presley. And FedEx, oddly enough. They just know everything.
So you're a huge deal down there.
Oh, man, I can't buy a beer in Memphis, man. I cannot buy a chicken pot pie in that town. It's all brought over to me. So, no, they do know, but I'm just, I only knew Elvis from really silly, kind of enjoyable movies. Elvis, to me, was the star of Girls, Girls, Girls and Fun in Acapulco, Spin Out. The music, I was a pre-Beatles. I turned 7 when the Beatles came out, and they wiped out everything. Everything prior to the Beatles was Doris Day.
Yeah.
Or Rosemary Clooney, How Much Is That Doggy in the Wind? Including Elvis, that's just the way it is. So I had no knowledge of it, and finding out that Colonel Tom Parker's name was not Colonel Tom Parker, it was actually Andreas van Kuik. He was from Holland, he jumped ship, he did not have a passport, he was an illegal alien, and was named some sort of bogus Kentucky colonel by the Lexington City Council one day. Turned that into a military rank and called himself a technical advisor.
This first time you worked with Baz Luhrmann, and obviously you'd seen his films. I could only imagine what it's like to work. They're so unique. Was working with him what you expected?
Baz makes coffee nervous. He is the hardest working guy there is. And this is so funny. So Austin, who played Elvis, he worked on this movie for 2 years. I was on it for about 6 months, and. He would always be saying, I don't want to see. You don't have to see the pages just now. You just wait. You'll see new pages in 2 weeks. 2 weeks there'll be new pages. There was never 2 weeks. No new pages ever came in. We'd come in at the beginning of the day. He'd say, "Okay, today's work. Have you seen the pages? Yeah, I haven't gone. Well, we're not doing them. We're going to do these. We're going to do these instead." It was like every day was a performance of La Boheme. There's 8 million people. There's no time and space. There's no as an actor, it's okay. What's the geography of the scene? What's the logic of the time? What's the behavior? Threw that all out the window, because he jumps around, and it's like there's no shuffling of the cards with him. It's just go, 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 go. And we would get to it. And we'd be working all day. And we'd be into, about take 17, Baz, do we have this yet? Take 17? Are we done yet? I know we've done it differently every time. It's, no, it's perfect, absolutely perfect. I'm going to use it. It's in the movie. Just one enhancement, and then we do it 16 more times. With more enhanced. But the liberating quality of that meant that we couldn't do anything wrong. Everything was just grand. So you never got a sense of, can we start again? You never had to, because guess what? You were starting again. There was no need to ask if you were going to.
There were, the Vegas scenes were such a wonderful cinematic experience. Seeing it on a big screen, which I was lucky enough to do, It was. You felt like you were there. You felt like you were seeing something special in real time. And again, Austin, I can't say enough about the transformation he did as well. I know less. I don't want to give him too much credit because it wasn't 5 hours of makeup. And again,
No, he did have a lot of times. He was in makeup as long as I was. We were in COVID protocols, so we didn't get half the making of the movie is okay. The one half is free sandwiches and haircuts anytime you want. That's a big thing about making movies. Don't tell anybody. Keep that to, otherwise, everybody's going to want to be in the movie.
oh yeah, everybody's gonna want once they hear about the free
that's
sandwich
all they
part.
Want,
Yeah,
man. That's it. A ride to the airport when you need one. That's a good thing too. But the other thing is the hang of everybody making a movie, man. It's just like, I mean, the very first time Edison put people together to make a movie, they said, hey, this is a pretty good hang. Let's do this more often. But with the COVID protocols, we were not allowed to see each other.
That's real.
So I was like this, and there was Sean, and there was Jason, there was Brittany behind holding my head. So particularly in the Las Vegas Hilton seats, there's easily 300 extras there. They're all dress extras. We're all ready. And we are all waiting for Elvis to show up. And he's on the other side of the gold curtain, the whole bit. And when you're waiting for 45 minutes, can you guys just do that audience waiting huzza buzza? Yeah. Pretend the whole show hasn't started. Just talk amongst yourself. Right, there was that sound,
Yeah.
By the way,
Very good
job,
by the way.
guys. That's fabulous.
really.
That's good. That's good. So we're waiting for him to come out all morning long. And lo and behold, if we didn't get the whole shebang, bum, bum. Can you give me some timpani, kind of like 2001: A Space Odyssey? Bum, bum. Yeah, that. And so we're all getting paid to be there, right? And we're all going to be there all day long. But every time that began, one more time, yeah, great. And the curtain would suddenly come up. We'd start hearing the band. My God, it was like we were transported. 300 people were going gaga. And we got to watch the show again and again and again and again and again. And every time, it was just magic.
I can imagine. I will say the whole time I was watching it, I'm genuinely saying this. I thought, I cannot wait to see this again.
We forget the power of Elvis in a room in Las Vegas. It's kind of like developed more like a cheese
kitschy
fest
idea.
kind.
Yeah.
It was not in the day. Anybody around the world, if they could jump through a time and space continuum machine, where would you like to be tonight? I would like to be in Las Vegas, seeing my idol Elvis Presley. That is where I would like to be. And they all went.
You're a man who wears
Love that rhythm
They're
section.
very good over there. You're a man of many hats, but one thing that I keep sort of seeing popping up over social media over the last few years is that you are a man who will show up at a wedding, invited or not.
It's my ego unchecked. I just can't help but think, what would these people like more than anything else? To remember this magic day of days with? Oh, I know, me. So I've crashed another one.
So Rome, you crashed one.
Okay. Now
right.
this is important because
Right,
Ron.
so this is Angels and Demons.
Ron
right?
Howard and I, we were making one of those fabulous Robert Langdon movies, and I hope he asked me to do 19 more
Of
because
course.
they are a blast. Thank you. Yeah. So. The problem here, we were shooting right in front of the Pantheon, and I'm talking about the Pantheon.
Yeah.
This is a building that was, it says Marcus Agrippa on it for crying. That's who built the thing. Somebody tell me when Marcus Agrippa died. I'll tell you when. 1,000 years before Christ. I don't know when he died. But it is now also a Catholic church. It is a consecrated Catholic church. So we were shooting out in front of it, and lo and behold, they had booked a wedding in there. While we're shooting stuff with trucks, and me and Ayelet Zura were running around trying to solve the great mysteries. And this limousine pulled up, and it was the bride and the groom trying to get me to the church on time. And they couldn't do it because we had all this stuff going on. And it was like, how do we fix this? So, like a stalker, hey, miss. I knocked on the window and said, listen, we have a thing in there, but would you do me the honor of escorting you to your bridal altar? So we did it, and then that's the bride and her dad.
And
we got her to the
they
church.
knew who you were right away? Because you are wearing...
I'm not so sure because they might not have, because I had that chemically straightened hair, as you can see right there, which is a little different.
You look like a little bit like a Tom Hanks impersonator.
I might have been the guy trying to get, just for a mere €5, you can take your picture with me. Doing one of
This
those
is me
things.
from Big, Tom Hanks.
That was one of the first times I don't like to think I crashed a wedding. I said I provided a service.
You did. Now, but you got a taste of it.
Oh, well, then, well, the magic. What's more
All
exciting
right,
than,
so what's
you know,
going on here?
Okay, all right. This is. Okay, but this is in the fabulous city of Pittsburgh.
The Berg.
The Berg, the Manhattan of the Monongahela, the Athens of the Allegheny, the Oslo of the Ohio, the city of Three Rivers. And we were, Rita and I, we were going off for a walk somewhere on our day off. And just as we were getting into our car in the condominium part of the building, this wedding party was coming up to get into the biggest cocktail booze cruise bus I'd ever seen. So they were all going. I mean, look. I mean, there's 47. This like there are less Pittsburgh Steelers than there are bridesmaids in this photograph. And we said, oh, it looks like the matching dresses must be brides. Well, if the bride comes out, I jump out and take a picture. Well, dun 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 dun. She shows up. So yes, I crashed their wedding photo.
But then this is you. Now, before I show it, this is you answered a request.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Because this one does not look. This would not be okay if you just showed up.
I did not crash that wedding. These were folks we were actually shooting. It was a movie called The Man Called Otto, and we were shooting in Pittsburgh. And our base camp buttressed these folks' property. And they had a couple kids. There's one of their kids right there. And they said, look, we've been thinking about getting married. We couldn't figure out how to do it. And they said, if you got a day off, could you marry us? And I'd like to have you know that as an ordained minister of the Universal Life Church.
Yep. Okay. What do you pay? What do you pay for a license like that?
I'd like to think I studied the Gospels for over $35. Okay. That's a different thing. So, by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, or is it state of Pennsylvania, I could perform this wedding, and I did. It was Kristen and her old man, as I like to call him, and they had sort of. I had a couple of words to say. They wrote their vows, and it was absolutely beautiful. And it was a great honor.
It's an incredible. That's an incredible thing that you did that for them. I would imagine, much like Memphis, after playing Mr. Rogers and doing a few movies there, you probably can't. You can't pay for a beer in Pittsburgh either.
No, actually, I can. Because what I get is I get the check and a hearty thanks for all I've done for the city.
It's a different place.
I got to tell you, Pittsburgh is a place. No one leaves Pittsburgh. They love living in Pittsburgh. They have great pride, and no small amount of, hey man, thanks for being here. Not more than that.
Yeah, I will say, you might not remember, the last time I saw you was on the set of Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Oh, that's...
You were filming. My dad is from Pittsburgh, and he used to go and sit in the audience in that studio, because you filmed it in the exact studio.
At WQED,
And we were lucky enough to stop by, and it was a real trip for me, but it was special for him. So we really appreciated that.
That was a walk through the time-space continuum.
Yeah.
On that one there, yeah. And so I don't know if I told this. So you're in Pittsburgh, and I'm going up the elevator, and everybody knows we're there shooting the Mr. Rogers movie, right? Yeah. And I'm, it's at the end of the day. I'm going up in the elevator. I'm in my sweats and stuff. And a Pittsburghian gets in the elevator because there's a big, rooftop wingding thing that's going on there where we are. It's like, you're Tom Hanks, aren't you? I said, yeah. How am I? How's filming going? And I said, it's actually going pretty well. I said, is the city treating you properly? I said, yeah. Pittsburgh's doing us a pretty good solid. Thank you. Well, good luck to you. I hope it goes well. And just before I get out of the elevator, he turns and he leans through, and as the doors are closing, he leans over and says, we take Mr. Rogers very seriously in this town.
I really like that he was worried Tom Hanks was going to do a hit job.
Let's understand, as I say, they're very proud of their town there in Pittsburgh. They don't want some interloper coming in and mucking things up.
Well, you did not in that case, and I've heard all the people whose weddings you've participated in are very still happily married. So that
yeah, there you go.
Credit
How
to you
about
as
that?
well.
I think a little fairy dust has been sprinkled upon the altar there.
You're excited.
Right. I'm very excited by the Strokes, man. It's not often, how many guitars are in the Strokes? It's
two guitars.
Two guitars and a drums, and there you go. That's all you need, baby. That's Cream, man. That is Cream, as in the Eric,
Yeah. The old Cream, not the...
I'm so excited about this that okay, you're going to have to make a decision. Here is one lottery ticket for the Powerball. I have one more. Now, this is worth $2 billion.
Right.
One of these will be yours. The other one will go to the band. Which one do you want?
Oh, interesting.
You're feeling lucky.
I'm going to take this one.
All right.
And I'm going to give that one to the band.
All right.
Oh, that would be such... It'd be such... You think it'd be a burn if they won, but I would be so happy because they'd have to split it.
Oh, that's right. Now the other thing, if you, they would have to split it. But I think the Strokes drummer should get just a little.
Yeah. I think a little bit more.
Just a little bit. But you do, if you win, you still got to swear you're coming to work the next day, pal.
Yeah.
You know what?
Nobody gets to take it off just because they win the Mega Millions.
Not good.
Hey, you know what I think is really funny, and I want to stress, this is a choice our show makes, not you. As I was introducing you, and I was saying things like, you know him from Forrest Gump, and that's helpful, I think, for some actors, but I don't think our audience needed to hear those things. I don't think if I hadn't mentioned Forrest Gump, Tom Hanks would walk out and they'd be like, what do I know him from?
All right. This is very kind of you. It's very nice. Thank you. Thank you. I have to blame home video for the familiarity because, between VHS machines and DVDs, man, you get that you all grew up with me one way or another.
Yeah.
All right, we're going out, and
That was a good era. The VHS era was a good time to get started.
Wasn't it fabulous?
Yeah. It's crazy to me, the idea of, the amount of movies I watched 15, 20, 30 times was so easy for me. Like when you were growing up, were there movies that you watched over and over again?
Oh, but they had to land, you know, they had to be on Channel 5 or something like that. And they were always edited for commercials. I remember the first time I saw The Maltese Falcon, it was only like 47 minutes long because they just cut out huge storylines. You know, there was an Archer in Spade. There was no Archer in it, which was Sam Spade. So you had to deal with that. But there was a time when I predicted at like New Year's, I predicted that in the future, we will all just have a box on our TV. And from that box, we can watch anything we want. Yeah. We can watch documentaries from 1952. We can watch we can all watch old episodes of the Dick Van, watch any movie that we want to. And I thought it would be there. I just didn't realize it was going to cost us $10 a month for 5 different subscriptions.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought it was like, well, you pay $1 for each thing, and that works out. I didn't realize you would have to have passcodes. An account that you had to pay for.
Yeah.
9 different, remotes of menu, outputs,
Do you ever have that? I have this point with my kids who are obviously a great deal younger than yours where they'll get really excited. I'll say, we're going to show you a movie and maybe let's say it's on Disney Plus and we'll sit down, I'll turn it on and it'll need the password again. And I will just say to them, it doesn't have the movie you want.
We're not going to have it. We're not, we can't.
Disney Plus is broken today.
They've decided that you are not allowed to watch this movie tonight.
Yeah.
So let's play Clue.
Yep, and there we go.
Pull out the Clue, and it's Colonel Mustard in the study with a lead pipe.
So there's a wonderful scene where you're teaching someone to drive in this film. Yeah. Now, again, your kids are old. You've gone through this. Were you good? Did you actually teach your children how to drive? And were you patient?
Well, okay, you've got youngsters, so you put them on the lap. You go to a big vacant lot. You let them steer around, and you control the pedals.
Okay.
Or you're coming up. Somebody's got to be. Hey, it's a quarter mile from here to there. Sit behind, and I'll shift for you and all that. Then they get into where they are sitting actually in the driver's seat, and you're riding shotgun. And all you say is, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing? No. Easy. Turn left. I'm absolutely terrible. No, you're not. No, turn that down. That's the other thing. Turn it down.
See, I'm glad to hear you're like this because I feel that is the future for me. Just based on, I'm trying to teach them how to ski, and the instruction that I usually give is something along the lines of, just ski.
Yeah. Go down.
Look, do what everyone else is doing.
Pole plant. Yeah. But look, in all reality, here's how we're going to teach our kids how to drive. Sit down, enter your destination, take a nap, and that's it. Yeah. They will get there at some point.
You, a very cool thing in this film, you play Otto in present day. Your son Truman.
Yes, he did. My son Truman.
Your actual son Truman plays you in the flashbacks, and this is, if not his first role, certainly his first major role. Were you excited for him?
It's an intimidating process. Mark Forster, who directed it, he said, "Why do we have to have a look-alike for you to play the young?" He's from He's from Switzerland.
Yeah,
all right.
So I think we were worried that we're like, oh yeah.
He was not interrogating us. He was actually suggesting a better way in order to make the movie. Maybe can't one of your kids come on and play you? I think Truman looks very much like you. So we'll have to talk to him. So he actually is a proud member of Local 600 of the New York City Camera Union. So he's actually He's actually loading film on episodic TV today. So that
Oh my God!
He's a Renaissance dude. And I said, look, if you want to do this, understand you got to fight self-consciousness like crazy. There's only one way to do it: show up, know your stuff, let go, and ski.
There you go. Why can't you ski?
Why can't you just ski?
So we're talking about your son Truman making his debut.
Now Mark Forster won him because we resemble each other almost exactly from the age of 26.
Yes. Yeah. But you, this is not him. This is you probably around the age of 26. This is your first film, He Knows You're Alone.
Oh,
Do you remember anything about 1980s, He Knows You're Alone?
I played, there was a psychotic killer that was killing women who were about to get married, would-be brides.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, that's my own jacket and that's my own wardrobe. It was January 1980 or something like that, and somehow I got the part, and I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning and meet somebody at 5:45 on the corner of like 9th Avenue and 43rd to drive off to Staten Island. We were shooting it, and I vomited the morning I got up. I was so nervous.
Wow.
I upchucked. I knew my dialogue, but just the whole concept of being in a movie was terrifying.
Now, when the agent called and told you had the part, did they say bring your own jacket?
It was like the movie cost like $400,000 or something like that, and they just said somebody will call you, and thank God somebody did.
I think this is the first time I saw you on screen. Was this film Mazes and Monsters?
Oh
now,
my God!
Mazes and Monsters. By the poster, you think this is a super cool sort of, Lord of the Rings type film. That is not the case.
No. By the way, they can be some damn chiseled good looks there.
Yeah, they really.
That's something else. By the way, this was not the billing when we made it.
No, absolutely.
It was on CBS. Steven Stern directed. Wendy Crewson. She's fabulous. She was in From the Earth to the Moon. David Wallace, Lloyd Bachner, who was a big deal, Peter Donat, Chris Makepeace.
Chris Makepeace is in My Bodyguard.
Yeah.
And now this film...
It was about kids playing mazes and monsters.
Which was Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons.
And you played a fella who got so deep into the world of Dungeons and Dragons.
I began to see mazes and monsters everywhere.
Yeah.
I fled to New York City and had a scene on the top of the World Trade Center.
Really? This was a film that, as I watched as a kid, it felt like a cautionary tale to parents, which was like, don't let your kids play Dungeons and Dragons.
And did you?
No, I didn't, and here I still am.
So let's make. We did, it was like, it had all the gibberishy kind of names. Beware of the castle of Fangoria, and you shall go to the towers of Pabla. It's like, it's a little tough.
Made it a little bit higher.
But look, I had a job. I was the most thrilled guy there was. I was actually, I'm going to say 24 when I made that, 24.
Next time you're here, do I have permission to introduce you, saying you know him from Mazes and Monsters?
I think that is going to be a requirement, I believe.
You have a wonderful co-star in this film, which is this lovely. I have a photo. You have a lovely cat.
Oh yeah, that's
and obviously you've worked with dogs, children, volleyballs.
Yes.
How was a cat co-star? Same cat the whole movie?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Smeggle Bagel. You cannot train a cat to do anything. They are the most disinterested creatures on the planet Earth. Dogs will do exactly what they are trained to do, including look at you adoringly, right? Because you work with a dog and the trainer says, they say the word bond, So the dog only looks at the trainer all the time. And so just say bond.
Bond.
And then they come back. That's literally what they will do. And you can even say bond sadder. Say bond sadder.
Bond sadder. Oh.
And then they will come back. They have no idea what they're doing, but cats are untrainable. Cats lay around like this during the shot. The cat is supposed to be in the bed. This cat is supposed to be sleeping. The cat's like this. And this had to roll and roll and roll because they wanted a moment where the cat looked at Otto, and the cat eventually did this. And that was it. That's
do you ever have to sort of have that awful moment where you're like waving something, trying to get the cat's attention?
Off camera, yeah.
Yeah.
Smeggle. Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. But now, is this true that the cat was at the premiere?
Yeah, we brought him along, and he let me hold him again. That was the big thing.
Wow.
Because that shot, I had to hold him for a couple hours, and the cat has to decide that you can hold him.
Yeah.
And you had to do it in a very specific kind of way, and I had to, you do that kind of stuff. And I was coached for a long time, and also the two trainers were right there, right off of camera. And yes, it's true, no cat was forced to do any damn thing it didn't want to in the course of making this motion picture.
I would expect nothing less of you,
It was
Tom Hanks.
Hold sway. Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Honestly, Wendy Crewson and I were in Mazes and Monsters together. We shot that in Toronto. It was a TV movie for CBS, and it came along right at that moment in an actor's career when one is convinced that we will never work again.
Yes.
Ever. Bosom Buddies had gone off the air.
Okay. Wow.
All right. And Peter went off. He was doing some other stuff, and I sat waiting for the phone to ring for about 8 months.
Wow.
And then
And Mazes and Monsters, for those who don't remember, was about the dangers of kids getting too into Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, nothing more dangerous to a child's psychology than a board game that you roll dice in order to walk down. To imagine you're walking down a hallway underneath a mountain with some spooks in it.
What was then the one where you stopped thinking that? What was the movie role that where you, when it was over, you didn't sit by the phone and wait?
And thought I was, well, Here comes out tomorrow.
Yeah, so after that, you think?
I'm doing okay. I think I'll be all right.
Good.
There is this thing that goes on, and I don't know if you experience it. There's a time when you think, okay, I've got this one, and I've already signed the contract for the next one.
Right.
If I can just fool them for 2 more movies, I will be okay. If I can just pull the wool over America and the world's eyes just 2 more times, I'll be all right.
I think this is good for young actors who are watching, knowing that even you are like, I'm barely holding on.
Oh, sometimes like you see somebody at a party, the famous people's club where you pretend you know everybody.
Sure.
You don't.
Right.
You don't know anybody. You never really met them, but you start calling Johnny Depp John Depp. How you doing? I met Johnny Depp once on MGM Grand, 100 million years ago. But every now and again, you see somebody and they're just kind of like, and you always say, pondering the professional zeitgeist. Yeah, I'm not sure that this is gonna work. I was on Seth last week, and it really was not a great set. And I think they've caught up, and that's the end of it. And it doesn't matter. It all just goes on.
This is very exciting, though. This is a reunion of sorts, this movie here.
It is. I like to say this. We're back together, me and Robin Wright, Bob Zemeckis, Eric Roth, who is a screenwriter.
Eric Roth is the screenwriter who also did Forrest Gump.
Yes, yeah.
And so he writes this, and obviously, you obviously a lot of faith with Zemeckis, and you obviously know what it's like.
We get together, we talk all the time, and sometimes we talk about movies, and sometimes we talk about dreams and hopes, and our fears.
But you can't. The two, you can't do anything unless Eric writes it.
Well, okay. When we were doing Forrest Gump, we were down. We were staying. Anybody from South Carolina? We played. South Carolina. Right, we're down by Beaufort. We're staying on Fripp Island, very historic kind of place. And we were sitting around. We had like 10 days before we started shooting this cuckoo movie. Are we sowing the seeds of our own destruction here? Is anybody going to care about this? And we happened to be there in the summertime, and it was the Perseids meteor shower. This is the first time I was able to witness the Perseids meteor shower. What happens is the Earth goes through the tail of an old comet, and all the bits of the comet re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, and therefore a ton of meteors. But I had never seen a meteor in my life. And I said, tonight's the Perseids meteor shower, but I think Fripp Island here in South Carolina is too far south, and we'd have to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning when the sky is at its darkest. Right, so I don't think we're going to see it. Oh my God! And there was, it looked like the head of a match that you had just struck. It was a ball of red, orange fire, and it streaked across the sky and left this trail that lingered and lingered and lingered. And I said, if you believe in omens, maybe this movie we're making is going to work out, because we just saw something that was otherworldly.
And now, famously, like 10 days before you start a movie, you're just out there with a telescope trying to find.
Please. Look, oh my God. Oh no, that's a plane coming into LAX. Doesn't mean anything.
It does have a similarity to Forrest Gump, that this movie takes place over a great many years.
Many years, and a lot of optical poptitude stuff happens. Your eyes will pop out of your head because you can't believe how'd they do that? How'd they figure that out?
It's also it's fascinating because it's one shot of a home, and you see like
a place in time. We were always making jokes. If what's going on between Robin and me and Paul Bettany gets boring, Bob will just have a stegosaurus walk by the window, and the walls will disappear. We'll be back in our primordial world.
Obviously, there's some technology being used here because Paul Bettany, being your father, when Paul Bettany got a call from his agent being like, "Great part, you're gonna be Hanks' dad."
Yeah, that's right. I'm 27 years older than the guy, and hey, come on, Pop, I want you to meet my new girlfriend. And Paul is tall.
Yes.
And we were always doing this thing where we were walking into our own close-ups, and they were sliding things under our feet and whatnot. And Paul had Bob say, "Hey, let's stoop." You know, that's Bob Zemeckis giving direction. And so Paul would have to like enter into the frame, stoop down so that his eyes would be in, and then he could straighten up as he walked.
We are in the middle of the World Series.
Yeah.
You have some loyalties.
Okay, now listen, I moved around way too much as a kid.
Yep.
Okay, I'll tell you, the very first baseball game I went to was the San Francisco Giants against the Milwaukee Braves. Milwaukee Braves.
Way back in the day.
And so it was Willie McCovey, Willie Mays, and Henry Aaron.
That was your first game.
I was like 7, and here's what, we were way up in the cheat seats. My dad, who knew nothing about baseball, he just needed something to do with these brat kids on a Sunday.
Just kill 3 hours.
So I punched the bottom out of a popcorn, turned it into a megaphone, and I was, at the age of 7, I was absolutely convinced that if I started the right cheer, that everybody would say, "Hey, that's a good cheer. Let's join in with this kid on this cheer." And so I was convinced that everybody would join in with me as I yelled, "The Braves are papooses! The Braves are papooses! The Braves are papooses!" Papooses, thank you.
That did not happen on the day.
That did not catch up. But then I grew up in Oakland, and I was just at the last Sunday afternoon game of the Oakland A's.
It's heartbreaking. I think for an A's fan, they're moving to Las Vegas.
This should not be allowed.
Yeah, but off they go.
I said, but then I also spent formative years in Cleveland, and so I have teams that I've been going to the Dodgers games, and all my kids are, they were born there. So
gotcha.
I have teams that I adore, and I have teams that I am indifferent to. Now understand. Loving a team is one thing. Hating is not the opposite.
No.
Being indifferent to
right.
it. I'm just going to say that I am indifferent to the San Diego Padres.
Right.
All right?
Yeah, you have nothing against them.
I have
just
nothing
feel
against
nothing.
them. That something about those Taco Brown uniforms do nothing.
No. And then I would imagine the Las Vegas A's is going to be a tough thing for you to wrap your head around.
I don't know how you go for that. But, all right, so this last one, I'm game. The Yankees and the Mets and the Dodgers and the Guardians.
Yeah.
Cleveland. The only people that wanted the Guardians in the World Series were the proud and the noble.
Yeah.
Like me.
Yeah.
And the other people who live in the greatest location in the nation.
Yeah.
Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland, Ohio.
Alas, I'm going to say most of America is, what's the word I'm using? Indifferent.
Indifferent.
Here we are. We don't know.
Do you want to do some predictions?
Well, okay, because they are going to be playing. We take.
By the way, the World Series may be over.
We don't know.
By the time you were watching this at home.
So we would have to ask ourselves, they're playing game 5 tonight. Will there be a game 6?
Gotcha.
Isn't that the question?
Yes.
And who better to trust than the Magic 8 Ball?
Okay, great. Because Tom Hanks will read. Now, should I ask you, or are you going to ask? You ask.
Is there a thing?
I don't know.
Oh, Magic 8 Ball.
You know what you're doing.
Really?
You know what you're doing.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. By the way, a lot of money is going to be wagered on what.
Of course, the only problem is the fact that by the time you can wager it, it will have already happened.
Yes, but there are some people out there that don't understand the Martian time slip here, and they're not good. They'll just throw some.
Yeah.
Okay, Magic 8 Ball.
Okay.
Will there be a Game 6 in the World Series between the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers? I'm turning it over. I do not have my glasses on. I'm shaking it around. What does it say?
I also don't have. It says my reply is no.
There will not be a Game 6.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Wally.
Wally.
I'm so sorry for Cue Card Wally.
But you know, it's
no.
Thank
No,
you.
see, those things are
Hi,
great.
Magic 8 Ball.
Oh my God, it rolled right over to
rolled,
Wally.
Oh my God. I have not seen an omen that
Oh my God.
important since the Perseus Meteor
It's the
Shower.
Perseus Meteor